Welcome to this amazing podcast. Welcome. This is a safe space. This is a place that I'm happy that you are here. Welcome to Wax On, Wax Off, the podcast where a teenager gains wisdom and insight from pioneers and innovators that have come before in search of how to win in every facet of life and change the world. I am your host, Solomon Cole, and let's get into today's episode. So before I tell you, which you probably already know, but before I tell you who is on today's episode, I just want to say something real quick. You guys are so supportive and amazing, and I thank you for that. And this podcast would not exist if it weren't for you guys, and I'm so grateful that I get to do this, that I get to talk to the people that I get to talk to, that I get to share it with the people that I get to share it with, and I'm so lucky. And if you like this podcast, or if you don't like it or whatever, will you please just share it with someone, either being like, I love it, or being like, hey, look how terrible this podcast is, and show it. You're probably not thinking that, but in the event that you are, still share it, because I want exposure, and I want to share this beautiful podcast with other people. Yeah. So without further ado, I want to introduce today's guest. She is my hero. She is the catalyst for my growth, and she didn't even know about it. Maybe she did. I don't know. Well, we're about to find out, actually. I would not be the person I am today if it weren't for her. She has changed me through and through. She has helped so much with this podcast, not just by her being on, but by her helping me to get connected with other people, and her just pouring her amazing, beautiful love into me. She is an absolute angel on this earth. She is a model. She has been on the covers of Vogue and many other magazines, and she has worked with, you can think of a fashion brand. She's worked with them. She is just so absolutely amazing and pure. And yeah, so I would like to welcome Elle McPherson on. Thank you, Elle, so much for being on. You're literally the best human ever. So I kind of want to start off the episode giving credit where credit is due. And you probably don't even remember this, but you gave my dad a notebook called the 5-Minute Journal.
I did.
Yes. And my dad said that I should use it. He said, this would be really good for you. You could work on focusing on gratitude, because at that point in my life, I kind of felt lost. And that, you giving my dad that notebook and him giving that to me, has been an entire snowball effect of positivity and habits and enlightenment. And when I had that, I felt selfish keeping it to myself. So the physical manifestation of that and me wanting to share that enlightenment with people is this podcast. So I want to say thank you. I wouldn't be who I am today if it weren't for you, and this podcast wouldn't exist if it weren't for you.
It's so, as you're speaking, I got goosebumps. And for me, that's like a truth rush. So it's so close to my purpose, which is to help other people on their wellness journey. And then hearing you express that it brings tears to my eyes. So I didn't expect to start like this, but that is a beautiful, beautiful way to start. So thank you. And I'm so happy that it had this beautiful manifestation of this podcast that I've been watching, and the incredible people you've had on it, and the wisdoms that they share.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you're on. It's a dream come true, and I'm just really excited to talk to you. So starting off, I really want to hear your story. How did you get into modeling, and how did you get to kind of where you are today?
Yeah, it's a long story, but I'll keep it short. I moved to America, New York City, in 1982. And at that point, just prior to that, I was in high school and I wanted to study law. My stepfather was a lawyer, and I had really struggled with my studies until my mom married him. And then he started to show me how to study, and I wanted to follow in his footsteps. And I really liked law as an occupation for me, because I was honing my skills in public speaking, and I was very driven to find a career that was meaningful and purposeful, and also stable. So I thought law for me would be a really stable, kind of secure and also logical choice. You know, my stepfather was a lawyer. I got good grades at school. And then what happened is I was sort of modeling part-time just because I wanted to finance my education and move out of home. So I'd been doing odd modeling jobs along the way. And I got a call from an agency in America. And they said to me, would you like to come to America for what I thought was a few months to model? And originally I said no, because, you know, it seemed like a frivolous thing to do. I was going to be starting school soon. I didn't want to be perceived as somebody that was just sort of like a girl that followed fame and fortune. You know, law was a very stable thing and logical. But I felt this twinge in my heart when they asked me. Now, originally I said no, and then I felt so sick afterwards because I knew inside myself that I'd gone against my heart's desire. A few months later, another agency called, and I accepted their offer, and I went to America, which for a few months, or what I thought was going to be a few months, and that was nearly 41 years ago. So I went to New York. I started modeling. I became successful quite quickly. I was interested in travel and being financially independent and freedom. That was my motivation in the beginning. I was never really interested in fashion, and which surprises people because they kind of think, well, maybe I always wanted to be a model, but really I wanted what modeling could bring me, that sense of being totally financially and emotionally and spiritually independent to some extent, you know, not living at my parents' home. And then as my career kind of evolved, it, you know, went from being a job that financed a life to becoming a career. And then with that career, I built a brand. And a brand in the sense that I had a recognizable name and face, and they went together. And so people would employ me for that brand. And then I started applying my brand to other companies in licensing. So, for example, there was a lingerie company in Australia that wanted me as the face of their business. And I thought to myself, okay, well, I can apply my brand to them and have the product, the lingerie, actually make the money through sales, and I would take a commission. So that was my first sort of entrepreneurial decision. Not to be a paid face, but to take a percentage of sales in licensing. And then I started to produce my own content for calendars, and I started producing a TV show in England called Britain and Ireland's Next Top Model. And, you know, I varied my career acting and ultimately forming my own businesses, my own lingerie business first, and now Wellco, which is our collection of, you know, plant-based supplements that really are wonderful tools to enhance your health and well-being, which is truly my passion. So, you know, I followed my heart. I didn't really take the logical steps. And, you know, I was thinking about kids that are watching this. We're so influenced by outside pressure, you know, whether it's family or society or schools. And we kind of make decisions based on what other people think are good for us. But it's so important to use your heart as a compass and to recognize when you get that spark inside yourself that you take a step towards that, not away from it. And I took a step away from it the first time, and I was physically sick from it. So, you know, I encourage everybody here who's watching this is to like listen to your heart and get to know yourself through listening to your heart, because it will never lead you astray. It will always take you on a wacky, wild, wonderful, you know, purposeful journey.
I completely agree. And I think when you talked about taking that step and in the direction of what your heart is calling you towards, I think a lot of people miss out on really great opportunities because they're scared to take the step. Maybe they know the direction in which they want to go, but they don't take the step, and they're scared and they don't have the courage. And they think that they're going to, if they take the step, it's the wrong step. But I think the key to success really is just taking that step.
Yes.
Because people don't have everything figured out, especially people who are going to get something successful. Usually it's just people like, I've got nothing else to do. I'm just going to keep stepping and stepping and stepping.
And to be true, you know, when you're 18 years old, like I was, I mean, I didn't know what I wanted to do or be in my life. And I think that sometimes, you know, for young people or for anybody to look inside themselves and ask themselves these 4 questions. And I call it the 4 A's. Are they looking for approval? Are they looking for agreement? Are they looking for acceptance? Or are they looking for allegiance? Because if your decision that you make in your life is based on any one of those, it will lead you astray.
Yeah.
And so what you're always looking for is to listen to that quiet urge within you and have the courage to take those steps, because there are no mistakes. And the only mistake that we have in this world is not learning. And you will learn from everything. And you can really be the creator of your own life through having the courage to take those heartfelt urges that you have.
I completely agree. And I love those 4 A's, how it's like, it's really about true success is purity of heart. It comes from a pure place. It doesn't come from, I want to make quick money. I want to, maybe if I scam this person, I can make this. It comes from a purity of, I'm passionate about this. This is something that I care about deeply. And this is something that I want to do. How would you say you define success?
Yeah, well, I agree with you in that success is an inner quality. You know, it is, and we say it well, Carl, here. I have my little thing here beside my desk that always reminds me that wellness is the new beautiful, health is the new wealth, kindness is the new cool, and inner peace is the new success. And so it's an internal feeling. You know, are you happy at work? Are you happy? Do you have a sense of fulfillment? You know, for me, that is successful, purposeful. I think success is really defined from those inner qualities rather than all the exterior things. And it doesn't mean that you don't have the financial or the material successes that become as a result of you following your heart passions. But it doesn't really have anything to do with money necessarily. It's not like when I have that money, I'll be successful. When I have those 7 Ferraris in my garage, I'm going to be successful. Because the guy that has 7 Ferraris in the garage is probably unhappy that he doesn't have the 8th one.
Yeah.
So you know, and I've learned that through my own journey, that I've had an incredible amount of exterior success, fame and fortune. And I have had times where I've felt lost and I felt very barren inside. So as you know, as you say, it is an inequality, and you can tell by the smile on your face. Are you enjoying what you're doing? Does it feel purposeful for you? Yeah. Is it resonating with you? Whatever it is, and that's success.
You talked about like kind of a dark place because you maybe were focusing on more material things and not those deeper spiritual successes. How, because you're at a place now where you could probably pretty much have anything like material wise. So
Right.
How does life keep its meaning for someone that could like practically have anything?
Yeah, well, I mean, things is not success, right? And things don't give life meaning. You know, meaning has nothing to do with those kind of things.
Yeah.
It's transient, and life's meaning is constant. And so what I would say is ask yourself, what is the meaning of your life? And what is meaningful in your life? What does your life mean to you? You know, and I believe that meaning comes from a purpose bigger than yourself. And that has been my experience in starting Wellco, you know, and we'll talk about this later on, I'm sure, but, you know, it was a result of my own wellness journey, but the purpose is bigger than the aims of the company to sell products. The purpose is bigger than my career aims. The purpose is to help other people on their wellness journey, and to help them bring their own unique, innate beauty out into the world. so that they can have the most fulfilling life that they could ever have. So, attaching whatever you do or moving towards whatever you do towards a higher purpose helps you find meaning in life and have a life that is meaningful for you.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think about people that maybe think that some sort of material thing or even a substance like drinking or drugs or whatever could make them feel whole. I'm coming up on the age where alcohol and things like that are becoming available to me, right?
Right.
And I was wondering, what do you recommend or what wisdom and advice do you have for people my age who are getting to the point where those vices, if you will, are available?
That's a really great question. And it's so amazing that you're asking it. So I have an interesting journey. I went to rehab when I was 40. I went once and I've been sober ever since. So I'm coming up to 60 now.
Wow.
And, I can recommend that you don't wait that long. I had a very long kind of exploration and experimentation with drugs and alcohol for a good 20 years. It was an interesting time. I learned a lot about myself through getting sober. I didn't learn so much about myself when I was actively believing that something outside of myself could make me feel whole. Another person, a drug, a drink, money, work, opportunities. I was always looking outside myself to fill what they call the God-sized hole in my heart. And I felt that I was disconnected to source or to God. And I felt that I was disconnected to myself, and I was constantly trying to fill it with stuff that would make me feel okay. And the result was it numbed me. And so I became numb to my life, and I became numb to my feelings. And the very thing I was looking for, which was a greater connection to myself, I was distancing myself from it. So I thought I had it all sort of under control. I thought it was just a question of how much I drank. And really what I realized is that it wasn't really my drinking, but it was my thinking and feeling that was the root cause of me choosing alcohol or drugs as a distraction almost. And, they say what's the best thing about getting sober is you get your feelings back. And the worst thing about getting sober is you get your feelings back and then you have to deal with them.
Yeah.
So it's been a really interesting journey. And I just, there's so much help for young people out there. Many, I go to AA meetings. I see many young people now where it was sort of like, well, I can't have an issue with drugs or alcohol because I'm too young, but people are finding that even if it's not got to the point where it's utterly destroyed their life, it is distracting them from finding or from even getting to know themselves at the time when it's so important that you are fully in your presence to experience your life, getting to know yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think a lot of people my age, they feel like they need to escape. They feel like they're, I saw something on Instagram, and I've said this on the podcast before, but it was this meme, and it was so true for me in a place in my life. It was like, I thought I loved music. Turns out I just hate myself. Like, you have to have headphones in. You have to be listening to something. You have to be scrolling. You have to be doing something because you can't confront yourself. And that, I think substances are another way to just think you can escape yourself. But no matter what, it's a problem it's something you're going to have to confront at some point. You can't run away from it forever. And I think what you're talking about, the support systems, are super valuable for learning how to not just be at terms with yourself, but love yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that people are afraid of confronting themselves, to use your words. If they really slowed down and were quiet, they'd realize that they're these incredible souls that have so much to give. And we all have this, unique expression of ourselves, and it's all perfect. But outside influences have taught us that it's not good enough, or it's not funny enough or beautiful enough or, important enough.
Yeah.
And, our purpose in this world to some extent is to be the purest expression of ourselves. And if we just get quiet and breathe and tap into that beautiful, incredible being that we are, you'll see that there's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah.
And it's just trusting that, and it takes time. It's true, it takes time.
Do you have any tips or advice for someone who has kind of learned to connect with themselves and love themselves and be okay with just being with themselves? Do you have any advice or tips or practices that you did to kind of be at peace with yourself?
Oh, well, there's very practical things. So for me, when I first started modeling, and I came from Australia and I came to America, and I didn't look like all the other girls, for example. I was, 6 foot, I had broad shoulders, I was a swimmer, I was, dark hair, dark eyed, Aussie girl, give it a go, courageous, say what you mean what you say, sporty, natural. And, that's sort of the contrary to everything in the fashion industry. And I tried for the longest time to be like everybody else. But of course, I stood out. I couldn't be like everybody else. But the day that I embraced myself and just said, okay, my differences make me more memorable. People don't forget me. And that's a really important step in modeling, is to be, memorable. So when I started to lean into my uniqueness, then I started to become more successful as a model. And that wasn't a like spiritual decision. It was just a sort of practical thing.
Yeah.
Like, I got to kind of like just find my way here. And I found it through just being authentically myself. So, in the beginning, it started off with the very tangible, practical decisions I was making through trial and error. I'd try something, it didn't work. I'd try something else and that worked. So I would apply it to the next lesson or the next opportunity that I had. As I've matured, I realized that, practices like prayer and meditation, however you choose to practice that or whatever that means for you, has been a very grounding and welcome time in my life. Because what I find through meditation particularly is I find clarity. And clarity doesn't come necessarily like I'm sitting in meditation and I get all the answers. But what happens is throughout the day, things become more clear and decisions become easier to make. And I intrinsically know how to handle situations that used to baffle me. And that is one of the promises. It's the 9th step promise in AA. It is, you will intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle you. And that's what I wanted in life. I wanted to know how to live life on life's terms. And meditation gives you that as well. That is one of the benefits of meditation.
Yeah, I think spiritual health, not mental health, but spiritual health is something that can be forgotten. And I think what we were kind of talking about is spiritual health, because there's your spiritual health, there's your mental health, which is like anxiety and depression and making sure that you're like focusing on things that are just being in the present moment, which kind of has to do with the spiritual health as well. And then it kind of goes on to the physical health, which kind of leads us in perfectly into Wellco, which is really caring for that physical health. So I want to ask you, like, what is Wellco? And you kind of talked about it a little bit, but what is Wellco and how did you start it and why did you start it?
Yeah, and that was a beautiful lead-in, because what I came to understand through all my years of modeling is that physical health, spiritual health, it's actually frequency-wise, it's physical health, emotional health, mental health, and spiritual health are all interlinked. They're not separate from each other. So I was trying to compartmentalize everything. And what I realized is when I was able to address things from a 360 perspective, that I had optimum well-being. When I was younger, I used to think that fitness equaled wellness. So I didn't understand that wellness is truly this integration of physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. And so I'd been through my journey of modeling. I was focusing on fitness. I got pregnant with my first son, who is now 25. And so I went through this whole change in my body of, becoming a mother, giving birth, breastfeeding, then losing weight to get back into modeling. And then I had the birth of my second son, same thing. And then I got sober. And I started to see that, there was more to health than just sort of like, eat the right foods and, go to the bathroom. There was so much more to it. And I went through, when I was 50, I went through sort of like a crisis where all the things that I had been doing in my life were not working anymore. So my diet hadn't changed, my sleeping hadn't changed, my exercise routine hadn't changed, but I was not feeling good. I was not inspired. I was depressed. I wasn't sleeping very well. I didn't think I needed to sleep. Mistake. I was, living off coffee. I thought I was Superwoman. I had, 2 kids, a business, and, huge life. And I just sort of hit a wall. And at that time, I went to see a wonderful nutritionist and naturopath in London. And I just said to her, look, I'm taking all these vitamins and I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to do. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I eat healthy life, I do my sports, and I feel terrible. And she said to me, well, first of all, the vitamins you're taking are synthetic. So your body's not absorbing them and recognizing them. On top of that, modern farming has depleted our soils from its nutrients. So most of the food you're eating doesn't have nutrients in it anyway. So you're malnourished. And I didn't think like in, living in London and having access to everything that I could possibly be malnourished. So I was malnourished. I was sugar deprived. I was sleep deprived, sugar addicted. I had no sense of vitality. I was putting on weight. My body was not functioning very well. And I started taking these green supplements, and I made some tweaks in my lifestyle. And within about 6 weeks or 2 months, everything changed. And I couldn't believe it because I had just sort of been to see doctors and they said, well, you're 50, so that's what happens. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And so at one point I said to her, I was taking these little capsules. At one point I said to her, do you think you could put those into a powder that I could take every morning? And that became our hero product, the Super Elixir, which I still take every day, which is 50 multivitamins, minerals, probiotics, prebiotics, adaptogens, mushrooms, and it's bioavailable, it's organically sourced, and it's this incredible combination of ingredients that supercharges the body, all 11 systems of the body. And so, I was looking for a solution for myself, but when I found this, I thought, there must be other people that are feeling the way I'm feeling. I want to share this revelation with them. And so, we founded Wellco in order to share. First of all, it was that one product. And then, it evolved. We had a protein powder because I couldn't find a good plant-based protein on the road and I wasn't sleeping well. So we had a sleep tea and now we have 30 different types of supplements and elixirs for everything from, hair, skin, immune system, calm for anxiety, clarity for people that are finding it difficult to focus. And as I said, my purpose became greater than myself in founding Wellco. And it's actually, I'm really thankful to it because that's how I met your dad. And I was so interested in, his work around inflammation. And I'd seen in my own body what inflammation does to it. And I would follow him on Instagram. And he asked me to do my very first Instagram live back in COVID times.
Yeah.
And so, the rest is history. So I'm grateful to Welco because that's why I'm here talking to you.
Yeah. And it seems like a kind of a similar story to the podcast in the way that like it just came from like your own journey and you figuring out your health journey. And then you're like, I have to share this with people. I have to, you were practicing what you were preaching in a certain way.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that with the wax on, wax off. Like, how did you come? I have an idea about this, but how did you come to that name?
It was actually, I was talking about it with my dad because I was like, Dad, I want to talk to people because people my age don't see the value of talking to people that are older, more experienced, more wise than them. And that's something that's being forgotten. And I didn't want that to go out of style. I didn't want that to be forgotten. That is a ritual in a way that is vital to human success, just human success, not personal success.
Yes, and it's the way our ancestors did with tribes. Tribes looked after their community.
And you had the elder, and the elder was the wisest, and they would tell you exactly, completely.
Yeah.
So I was like, I want to figure out a name. Like I had it all laid out. He was like, what if you do wax on, wax off, like the Karate Kid? What if you, and you talk to these modern day Mr. Miyagis? And I was like, that's genius. And that's been like my driving force. And that's why I do this, is because I don't want wisdom to be forgotten. I don't want, and it's funny that my name's Solomon, because like King Solomon in the Bible was the one who seeked after wisdom. And that was like, that's kind of what I'm doing. But I really hope that my goal for this is just so that people who either don't have the courage to go out and find wisdom themselves can find it here. And that's kind of the whole vision.
Yes, or listen to how people have found wisdom within themselves, because ultimately wisdom is not something that you can get from somebody else. Wisdom is experience applied in your life. And that's how you glean wisdom. So we are sharing the wisdoms that I've learned through trial and error. And I didn't have wisdom. I had experiences, and I learned from those experiences.
Yes.
And once I learned from those experiences, they became wisdoms. I like it also because it's like, for you, I think of like spiritual disciplines in a physical world. And I think that that's something that we all are looking for, asking each other and exploring within ourselves, what are the spiritual disciplines in a physical world? How do we be our spiritual being in this physical world? How do we bring that into our life and not have them as being separate?
Yeah, I 100% agree. So I did some polls on Instagram going into, like, people were super excited to ask you a bunch of questions and ask all these questions. So I want to get into it. I'm excited to ask you these questions. The first one is, what are your top beauty tips?
Well, I think my number one beauty tip is realizing that beauty is soul deep, not skin deep, not just skin deep. And I say that because we are all born beautiful souls. So beauty is for everybody. And I believe that beauty comes from within. So it's not, the planes of your face and the color of your hair, but it's how you are in this world, how you exude your uniqueness and your character in this world. And, what you look like is only a small piece of it. And if it was purely what you look like, then I would not have had a 40-year career. Because, if beauty was equated to youth, at 60, I wouldn't be here talking about the things that I've learned about beauty over the time. And I've understood that it comes from within. There's so many people that you might see. I don't know if you know Serge Gainsbourg, for example. He's a French singer, and he's not what you would consider to be a beautiful man, but he is so charismatic, magnetic even, that people are attracted to him by who he is, how he is, how he brings his uniqueness into this world. So I think that that's extremely important for people to understand that the first step in beauty is recognizing that it comes from you being you. I also think that, everything changes when you smile. The world lights up when you smile. And it doesn't matter what you look like. When you come to a situation where you're with somebody and you smile, whether it's to somebody walking down the street or a conversation that you have, you're immediately inviting them to connect with you. And for you to connect with them. And that's what we want, is connection. So beauty is soul deep, not just skin deep. Smile. I would say hydration is extremely important. I mean, these are very tangible things because the brain needs to be hydrated. The body needs to be hydrated in order to function well. And when the body functions well, you feel confident, you feel courageous, you feel strong, you feel present, you feel vital. And understanding how nutrition affects your body is extremely important, because when you're feeling inflamed, it affects everything. It affects the way you feel about yourself. It affects your moods. It affects the way you, how you think. If you're trying to study, it's impossible. So hydration, nutrition, realizing that it's soul deep, smile, would probably be my biggest beauty tips. Less is more. I think often we try to disguise ourselves. If you're a girl, wear lots of makeup, hair, get dressed up a certain way. But I found that I've seen more beauty in people in their pared down, pure selves.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And when you were talking about the beauty is soul deep, not skin deep, it reminded me of, I was listening to Eckhart Tolle talk, and he was talking about this. It was like an example, and he was like, this lady was very focused on the way she looked exterior wise, and she was so focused on it. And what she was doing is, by focusing on that, she was like, imagine as if she was like, there was a treasure inside, and she was hardening around that treasure, and she was blocking it in. And when she came to a place where she felt comfortable and she embraced herself, it's as if that became more transparent and the internal beauty shone through. And that's really what I think, that's lasting beauty. That's beauty that is eternal.
Absolutely.
And I love that. The next question is, what is your favorite book and why?
Yeah, listen, there's been many books that have touched my life, but the one that really changed my life was a book by a wonderful author who is also my life coach. And I read his book. It's called From Atoms to Angels. And his name is Paul Darrell Walsh. Okay. Walsh. And when I picked up his book, it was just so empowering. And it sort of outlined all the questions that I had and explained things in a very easy and relatable and understandable way. It's a small book. It's very easy to read. It's concise, and it's it explains the tools that we have to be empowered in our life, and why it's worth exploring. So that would be my favorite book, because it truly did change my life, and it's one that I recommend to a lot of people, and I give away to a lot of people. And you can get it on Amazon.
That's really awesome. I love that. I'm going to definitely have to check that out after this.
Check it out.
Yeah, I love a good book. The next question was, what is your favorite music album?
So the love of my life is a musician, and so we get to listen to a lot of music together and create music together, and in many ways. I find myself listening to the Beatles, believe it or not. I would probably say, so one of my favorite albums would be something from the Beatles. And they were together for so few years, but they made a huge impact in this world. And some people say that all four of the Beatles were portals from Mayan astrology. And they came here for good reason. They came here to raise planetary consciousness through their music, which was infused with love. and it was uplifting, and we know that it changed the world, but just by that kind of impact that they had without people really knowing why these four guys' music was so powerful. So I really love the story behind them. I don't know if they are portals for me in astrology, but I did like that story.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was, there's a lot to be said for that, because they came here for a purpose.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I agree. What advice do you have on finding love? You talked about the love of your life.
Yeah, listen, my journey has really been a journey to finding self-love. And I think that it's always important to remember that the love that you magnetize in your life is a direct reflection. It's a vivid picture of the love you have for yourself. So be what you want in your life. It's like, be the change you want, but also be the loving being consciousness that you want to find in your life. And I've had many profoundly beautiful relationships, long relationships. And I have seen that, some of them have been less than loving at periods of my life when I've been less than self-loving. And it's not about them, it's about me. And I think the greatest gift I've ever been received from somebody was understanding, this one particular person was understanding that they didn't come here to love me. They came here to teach me to love myself. And, and I also think for people, young people watching this, or anybody watching this, is to remind yourself that there's a big difference between attraction and connection.
Yes.
And today I look for connectedness. And, there's not like a shopping list of things that I want to tick off, like, oh, we both like to do the same thing, or we, like the same music, or, it's where is the heartfelt connection? Where do you connect on a deeper soul level, and not just the sort of usual things that people look for in a relationship? And where do you connect with yourself?
Yeah.
And the more you get to know yourself, the more capable you are of magnetizing a deeper, more profound love.
I completely agree. And I think if you are not fully and completely, utterly your best self, why would you want to give a bad version of yourself to someone and show them that and have that? So like having that relationship with you first, and then once you have that with you, you have that like solid foundation, and then you can give it to, or not give it to, but go alongside someone else who has also found that. And there's no one's going to be perfect, but having that, I completely agree. I think that's really amazing.
Well, I think sometimes that puts a lot of pressure on you, though, because we are perfect, all of us, always.
Yeah.
And, the perfection is in being you, all the different flavors of you. And you don't have to be like always up and always, saying the right thing and doing the right thing and pleasing others. It's to show up and be 100% you. And, I think a lot of people wait till they feel that they are their best selves before they embark on a relationship. Having said that, I feel that it's so beneficial to be in a relationship that resonates with you, regardless of if you think you're your best you at that point, because I can guarantee the person that you're with will teach you, and they're there to teach you as you are to teach them. And so, like trying to hold out to be like this perfect, partner, it's you are perfect anyway, anytime you are in your heart.
I love that. That really spoke deeply to me, because I do feel like sometimes I'm waiting for myself. I'm a very perfectionist person when it comes to myself, not pretty much with anything else, but when it comes to me, I'm such a perfectionist, and I feel like I always have to be like, if this isn't checked and this isn't checked and this isn't checked, then like screw it.
I'm not valuable.
We have to wait. We have to wait until I figure this out.
So wait a second. I want to talk to you about that, because it's a really important point, perfectionism. And I have struggled with that all my life, so much so that when I went to rehab, I did the steps on alcohol. I did the steps on drug. The next one was on perfectionism, and how my misbelief that I'm not already perfect has dominated my life. Constantly striving to be my own expectation of myself instead of embracing, loving, understanding, and being with myself. And it was so painful, Solomon. And I still find myself doing that. I still find myself criticizing myself. And how can I do that when I am a pure spirit of divinity? Who am I to criticize that?
Yeah.
So remember, you are perfect.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. And I'm going to now forever remember that and have that in me, especially hearing it from you. There's certain people that when they tell me stuff, it hits different, and it really resonates with me. And I just remember some stories, whenever we went over to your house and we hung out with you, I remember you talking about just different art and stuff and just all these things. And you're one of those people that really their words are super valuable to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And yours are to me.
Oh, that means a lot. Thank you. What would you say brings you joy in life? That was one of the questions that someone asked. And I was like, this is a deep question.
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest joys in my life are my children. And it's not even I think, I know.
Yeah.
I know. So being with my children, being in nature, feeling fulfilled in the work that I do, spending time with friends, being creative. And this is all anchored by being well, because if I'm not well physically, it's very hard to be in a state of joy. And anyway, our innate God-given right is to be well. Our bodies have the capacity to be well all the time. If we, create the right environment for it, and it is our God-given gift. And so I think that the foundation of being able to experience life to its fullest is through being well, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually.
I completely agree, and I love that. The next question on the list is, what does a day in the life of Elle McPherson look like? And I'm excited to hear this.
Well, there's no one particular day in the life of.
Yeah.
Because I'm a nomadic at the moment. My boys I have one boy who, my son is not a boy anymore. He's 20. He's in university in Boston, and he's turning 21. And my 25-year-old turning 26 is working, and he travels the world as well. So, I'm also free to explore and experiment and discover lots of passions in my life today. A lot of people talk about having an empty nest when their children move out. And I prepared myself by following passions in my life, preparing really for when they left, and finding out what interested me and following them. So now I'm on the road a lot. I've been on the road basically for a year. But there's some things that stand very true, right? Without fail, I drink a liter of water when I wake up in the morning. And at the moment, I'm doing Zach Bush's hydration protocol, which is lime and some Celtic sea salt. And I drink that before I even get out of bed. Before I drink my water, when I wake up, I do not touch my phone. I lie in bed and I do gratitude. And that's where that gratitude book came in. I do a gratitude list, and I run through in my head. I don't write them anymore, but I run through in my head the things that I'm grateful for. And also I do a sort of manifestation stream of what is it that I want to create today? And I really feel as if in that moment that I've already created it. So it's not a wish, it's not a hope, it's not, oh gosh, I wish I could do this. It's at the moment my house is selling. This house, the owner new owner is right around the corner. They're coming to see the house soon. And, because my house is on the market.
Mm-hmm.
I don't say, I hope I'm going to sell my house. I feel what it feels like to have that freedom of my house being sold. So I do my manifestation stream. I do gratitude. I do some breath. I center in myself. I check in with my body, see how I'm feeling. I drink water.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't touch my phone.
Yeah.
Because I can get distracted. If I start opening emails first thing in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
I'm already off on a tangent.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it can be really positive and you can see something great and you're really excited by it, or sometimes it can really bog you down. And I think that's like there's a part of our brain that like wants us to be like, are we going to get a great news? And then if we get bad news, we're bummed out, but we probably want to go back into that cycle. So I completely agree. Like going and not being on our phone and waiting to do that until we kind of set ourselves up for the day.
Exactly. And it can be extremely distracting because I like to have my kind of morning routine. I want to have my matcha. I want to sit in the sun a little bit. I want to ground. I want to hear the sounds of nature. I want to hydrate. And so if I'm stopping doing that because I'm answering emails, and before I know it, it's midday, and I haven't even stepped outside. And I'm fortunate because I have beautiful property, as you know, and, put my feet on the ground, not hugged a tree, but, literally, metaphorically hugged a tree. My days started off with my brain answering emails instead of connection to myself and to heart. And the reason why that's important is because when you make decisions that are from a heart space, those decisions will be supportive. When you make a reactionary response, it's not a response, it's a reaction to something that's just come in with the brain of logic trying to figure out, usually it leads you astray. So I want to be making decisions from my most balanced self. And so I do these things in the morning. And I intermittent fast. I tend not to eat until about 1 or 2, maybe. I'll have my hydration. I drink my Walco Super Elixir greens. I might make a protein shake, but I don't really have kind of a substantial meal until later in the day. And that really works for me.
Yeah.
I feel very clear. My body feels light. My spirit feels light.
I agree completely. I'm more that person anyway, where I want to be really productive. And sometimes like I agree with you completely, is that intermittent fasting for me personally is like something that just works well with my life and makes me feel good. And it's all up to you and the decisions and you figuring out what your health journey is with that. Because some people, it's not for.
Yeah. And I think people have to be, some people need that nourishment first thing in the morning. They function better with it. So, it's not one size fits all. But I do like giving my digestion rest. And it's not about deprivation.
Yeah.
It's about simply prolonging that period and while still giving myself nourishment. So I don't do like a lot of people do, and it's just water. I have my greens. I have a matcha with oat milk because I love that in the mornings. I have, I have a protein shake. So I'm nourishing myself.
Yeah.
I'm just not really having hugely difficult to digest food until later in the day.
100%. It's bioindividuality.
Individuality.
Yeah. Both. But I think it works always for our mental, for our physical, for our spiritual and our emotional. We're all different people. We are all created with a different fingerprint. And that goes throughout every part of us. And I think acknowledging that and living life with that is very important. And you can just remember I do this all the time. I remember by like looking at my finger and I'm like, if I am having shame or comparing and being like, why am I not like this person? Or why do I struggle with these things and other people don't? Like, it's just because I'm created differently. I have other strengths that other people probably don't have. And in understanding that we're all different people and we're all on our own different journey.
And bringing that uniqueness into the world is really what it's about. Not suppressing it or trying to change it or perfect it.
Yeah, completely. I guess kind of on that topic, what advice would you give to 18-year-old you? If you could go back and you could see 18-year-old you, and now you have all this wisdom, you have all this knowledge, what would you tell her?
Well, it's the same thing I would tell you, and it's the same thing I tell myself today, which is give it a go. Whatever is your heart's passion, give it a go.
Mm-hmm.
And just check it out.
Yeah.
Take a step towards it and just give it your best effort, 110%.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think it's really important to be true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that requires getting to know yourself, and getting to know yourself comes through experience. So you try lots of different things. And, my kids, I've always encouraged them to have like summer jobs and to try lots of different things. I mean, one year my son did a watchmaking class. He's going to business school, but he was fascinated by watches. And I think that the way you get to know yourself is by exploring and doing lots of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to know how you respond in certain situations. I get frustrated when I'm doing, very intricate work, or I find that I'm really great when I'm doing intricate work. So get to know yourself, and be true to who you are relentlessly at every given moment. Say what you mean and mean what you say. And alignment for me is, what you think and what you say and what you do are all aligned. And when you're in alignment, you'll see that the things flow very easily, and we want things to be sort of effortless, right? It doesn't have to be hard. And the thing that I would have said to myself again is that, be your authentic you. And I thought I wasn't enough for a very, very long time, and in fact, looking back on it, I have so many beautiful qualities to bring into this world, and now that's what I do. I choose to do it because I want to.
I love that so much. That's amazing. Where can people find you and your products? Where do you want to direct the people who are like, I want to get Wellco products, or I want to learn more about Elle?
You can go to wellco.com. And then you can find all the products. My kids take them. My whole family takes them.
I take them.
You take them.
Yeah.
So there's hair, skin, immune, clarity, focus, your greens, which are super important, foundation, your protein, which is super important, clean, lean protein. So you can go to wellco.com and you can check it out, and it'll be worth the commitment to your own well-being as a foundation for everything you want to achieve in life.
I completely agree. All right. Thank you so much, Elle, for being on the podcast. And
my pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. All right. Bye-bye.